It's has some name actors in it, I guess, and I'm always bad at that kind of thing. I don't typically recognize the names, but I sometimes recognize the faces. But the acting was terrible, and it's one of those things where if you're watching bad movies, you need to count on this kind of thing. Like if you're watching and being like, fuck, this might not be so bad if it weren't for the bad acting, you're doing it wrong. You need to watch it and appreciate it for that bad acting. You know, you don't let the bad acting get in the way. You let that be what you're appreciating about it. And then there's a lot to enjoy in this one. Like the people shouting their lines, like just shouting it would maybe make it more convincing from an actor's perspective. There were some really egregious cases of that in this movie that were just so over the top and unconvincing and just ridiculous that you had to keep in mind that you were appreciating it for that, because there's a whole lot of it. You know, the movie goes on. It looks like they're out in like a public park in Milwaukee, something like that, staging these war games where they set a guy off Rambo style, wearing nothing but his jorts and maybe some oil on his chesticles and his guns.
Some oil.
Maybe some oil. Okay.
And then they're hunting him, and he's surviving by like killing them one by one. And of course, there has to be the revelation where these guys are walking around finding some of the dead bodies, and somebody's like, we're not hunting him, he's hunting us. And the other guy being like, do I know him? I trained him. And like that whole building him up like this is the toughest motherfucker you ever met. And he was, because like I said in the chat, like most of these pussies in these movies would swing a stick at a man. In this case, our hero grabbed a man and whipped him into a tree. Just like bashed him against it. Broke his back. Yeah. It goes on for a while.
Grown man.
It goes on for a while. There's all this bad acting, and it's pretty tedious. But then by the end, you feel like it's all worth it. At least I did, for like the ultra violence of the ending scene where he hacks off his opponent's arm and then beats him to death with the severed arm. And then he just stands on the horizon screaming.
Yep.
And that's like the ending of it. But what was curious about this is like the love interest or his wife or whatever just gets killed. And then he kills these guys and he doesn't end up saving anybody. And I was thinking, did they really take did they really make a bold move here? Because everything else seemed like it was following cliches so closely. And it just seemed, you know, really out of step for them to make it like he didn't save anybody at all. And then he was just screaming at the end. Unless I think if they were thinking of this as more of an origin story and they had designs for making more films, because then you have a real common kind of hero origin story.
Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a